In a bustling Roman world, in the year 60 AD, one city held both grandeur and conflict: Ephesus, crossroads of empire and faith. The city was known for and proud of its wealth, its trade, and its many wonders. Yet beneath, divisions brewed in silence. Crowds once filled the markets, voices echoing with trade and argument. But not all voices were welcome. The great theater of the city of Ephesus could seat thousands. In the past, it had already seen shouts of anger toward Paul and his followers. Watching from the hills, the city gleamed with power, filled with temples, a large harbor, and overcast by the shadow of Rome's presence everywhere. Yet among the grandeur, small gatherings met quietly, followers of the new faith, risking suspicion and rejection. Roman roads tied the empire together. Merchants, soldiers, and travelers passed daily, carrying news and fear alike. In the forum, power spoke loudly by those who held it. The statues of the emperor loomed over all citizens, demanding unconditional loyalty above all else. But in the shadows and dark alleys of the city, followers gathered. The secret places and hidden locations offered a refuge for whispered encouragements. The gates of the city framed both hope and fear. Travelers entered with dreams, but were also watched with suspicion from guards. The city of Ephesus was very proud of Artemis. She was the goddess of fertility, and her temple was one of the wonders of the ancient world. But to the new followers of Jesus Christ, the devotion to Artemis was not freedom. It was a bondage they had left behind and opposed. One day the silversmiths rioted. Being truly angry at Paul's teaching of one king only, their business was suddenly threatened by the radical gospel's message. Paul himself had walked these streets in the past chasing Christians. His words stirred faith and fear, shaking the very foundations of old loyalties. He was now imprisoned in prison in Rome, but his chains could not silence him, nor stop his words of hope. It is here where he wrote his most influential letters. Locked up by the Romans, he still wrote to Ephesus, the city he loved so deeply. His words carried encouragement, challenges, and a vision for all Christians. His letters spoke of a new unity, a body joined not by blood or nation, but by unconditional faith in Jesus Christ. Back then, the Ephesian believers lived between two contradicting worlds, the Roman power outside suppressing them, yet Christianity gave hope from within. To them, kindness was not a weakness, it was a radical act, defying the Roman Empire's power, hardness, and division, true revolutionaries of their time. Forgiveness was their mark. As God forgave them through Christ, they were called upon to forgive each other. Life outside the house church was often harsh. Roman law prevailed, pagan rituals upheld at every corner, and commerce dominated every street. People following the way of Jesus carried messages of love, where others only demanded loyalty to the empire and pagan idols. They taught kindness in action, tender-heartedness in every choice, forgiveness in every dispute, yet they never demanded for themselves anything. Their challenge was immense: to love their enemies, care for strangers, and forgive even the worst betrayal. Letters like Paul's reminded them that forgiveness was not optional, it was their identity. Ancient Ephesus faced political pressure and economic uncertainty, yet faith created resilience. The early believers understood that kindness could spark unity in a divided world. Even in conflicts, they learned to speak softly to others, act gently with all, and forgive quickly. Forgiveness was not only a moral obligation, it was strategic, creating communities that could survive even heavy scrutiny. They relied only on their collective memory, recalling past mercy as they extended mercy themselves. Daily life constantly intertwined labor and devotion. Farmers, merchants, and busy believers all played their part. Even work became an act of faith for the early Christians. Every task a new chance to show care and patience in every act. Through acts of service, believers embodied the message. Kindness is visible, tangible, transformative. Early Ephesian Christians understood that even small gestures could counter cruelty and indifference from the Roman oppressors. In this context, Paul's words offered a new framework. Be kind to everybody, stay tender-hearted and forgiving, just as God forgave you too. The world outside demanded suspicion, yet inside, Love was a radical resistance that bound the early Christians together. Community meant sharing resources, stories, encouragement, and protection. Forgiveness allowed them to move forward, unburdened by the resentment of the Romans and constant fear of oppression and prosecution. In a city bustling with commerce and under empire rule, small acts of love and mercy were revolutionary and unheard of. Every choice to forgive, every kind act lived, strengthened the bonds that fear sought to sever. Farmers labored on the hillsides, their hands shaping the land as much as their own lives. Working in the vineyards taught patience. Life, just like the grapes, could not be rushed, and neither could faith. Potters had to shape clay with care, turning a piece of mud into vessels that would carry life-sustaining goods. Every craftsman knew that patience and skill combined mirrored the moral work of kindness and forgiveness. Whenever possible, families shared meals, stories, and laughter, reinforcing bonds through everyday acts. Every business also, big or small, became a place where mercy and care could flourish unnoticed by the world. The harbor of Ephesus brought wealth to the city, but also dangers such as sea storms, pirate raids, and Rome's demands constantly loomed over every shipment. Fishermen rose early every day, trusting both God and the sea to provide for their families for food and wealth. Apprentices learned every task from their masters, observing carefully, mimicking patiently, gaining both skill and character on their path. In every courtyard, every shop, small bark or large ship, and every field, the principles of kindness and forgiveness were tested. Daily, olive groves reminded the early Christians of enduring patience and the cycles of growth and harvest. Harvests were daily hard work, but a shared effort strengthened the community bonds and mutual care between all workers. Ephesus markets buzzed daily with trade, foreign voices, and coins, places where honesty and integrity were put daily to the tests. In every small transaction, Christian kindness could soften hard hearts and build trust. Even amongst strangers, the city's various temples stood grand, yet believers found strength not in the monuments and statues, but in mercy and humility between each others. Christian worship was personal, grounded in everyday life and interactions, not only in grandiose displays and ceremonies. Music, laughter, and shared labor reminded them of joy within God's mercy. Teaching their children kindness ensured the next generation would carry the same values. The faith started to get built deeper and deeper into society. Prayer, study, and communal care became the backbone of resilience in a troubled world where power and control lied in the hand of the emperor. In quiet homes, by flickering oil lamps or candles, the believers lived the radical call to kindness and forgiveness. The hillsides and valleys of Ephesus were alive with hard labor and busy farmers, a canvas of human effort and divine creation. Each act of kindness, no matter how small, was a seed planted in the soil of the Christian community. Forgiveness allowed relationships to grow, trust to form in the community, and the body of believers to endure hardship and oppression. In a city dominated by power and wealth, mercy became the invisible strength of the faithful new followers of Jesus' way. Hard work, playing together, worshiping Christ, and study Jesus' words, intertwined, forming a rhythm that nurtured compassion. Forgiveness was not merely emotional, it was of practical use, restoring harmony and cooperation during times of distress. Paul's letters reminded the believers that God's mercy was a model, showing them the way forward and providing a structure they could trust on. They knew that kindness, tenderness, and forgiveness were revolutionary acts in a world of suspicion and oppression through the powerful. In workshops, craft reflected character, patience and care in work mirrored moral discipline that was nurtured by the way of the new faith. The city's grandeur could not overshadow the quiet triumphs of mercy and unity among Christian believers, suppression no longer holding them back. Parents taught their children through example, generosity, patience, and forgiveness in daily life. These acts formed the next generation of believers. Young apprentices watched their masters, learning that patience, skills, and virtue went hand in hand. Communities strengthened as each person's small acts of mercy rippled outward and inspired others to follow the example. Forgiveness restored bonds damaged by misunderstanding or conflict, creating lasting unity and helped the Christians to build trust over widespread areas. The harbor carried not just goods but also traded news, foreign ideas, and opportunities for compassion, ultimately helping to spread the words of Jesus. In commerce, small acts of honesty and kindness spoke louder than wealth or power, and it was a shock to most seeing it at the time. Christian teachers and elders nurtured the spiritual growth, guiding young and old hearts to live mercifully and caring for others. Music and singing during work and shared laughter reminded the community that joy was part of mercy, even when constantly watched and under pressure. Study, work, and prayer created a rhythm of life that reinforced unity and care. In every Christian household, in every field worked, the call to kindness and forgiveness was lived day by Jesus' followers. In quiet moments at work, believers reflected on mercy and forgiveness, anchoring their hearts in God's example. City walls contained both protection and oppression, reminding them of the fragile balance of life, a tool put to use by the powerful at will. Streets hummed with life, crime, commerce, and gossip, yet Christina believers pursued quiet acts of kindness within them. Acts of mercy were visible yet humble, unnoticed by many, but powerful in their effect. Getting caught by the Romans could mean prison or worse. Forgiveness healed wounds in society and built communities capable of enduring the harsh trials from the empire. Paul's letters reminded all of them that the pattern of God's mercy was to be followed daily and unconditionally. His words made it clear that by attending temples only, God will not open heavens to one, mercifully acts where needed, not money spent for sacrifice. Forgiveness allowed believers to move forward without bitterness, strengthening both faith and fellowship. Shared music, stories, and laughter nurtured hearts, reinforcing the values of kindness and tenderness. From the harbor and roads of Ephesus it conquered the Roman Empire. The message of Paul came in letters to Ephesus and left again spread with the goods from Ephesus, spreading Jesus' words in the wake of trade through the Roman Empire. The new prayer grounded the early believers, reminding them daily of the divine, and acted as a source of kindness and forgiveness. The community could thrive because mercy was prioritized over anger and personal gain. In the market, small acts of honesty built trust stronger than wealth or power. Even while surrounded by commerce and Roman politics, the new believers cultivated spaces of mercy and patience and used the empire's infrastructure to spread the message. Back then, forgiveness was a radical new act, breaking cycles of anger and creating bonds of trust. Daily life became a rhythm of praying, learning mercy, patience, and kindness in action. Acts of care, however small, strengthened the body of believers and their city, but they raised concerns amongst the ruling elite. When the authorities noticed such kind acts, it could lead to harsh punishments and prison. Christian lives were testimonies to the power of kindness, tenderness, and forgiveness. Despite the oppression, they kept going. Even in a world of tension and division, the message of mercy and forgiveness could no longer be stopped by the empire's might. Christinas and Ephesus lived in constant fear of prosecution and torment. Yet they continued spreading the good news. They have been attacked by supporters of the Romans as well as Jewish religious leaders, living in constant fear of being found out. Secret community gatherings reinforced trust amongst fellow Christians, building resilient bonds of courage against the oppressors. Despite Emperor Nero's harsh hunting for Christians, the faith spread from the town centers to all countrysides and ultimately throughout the whole Roman Empire. When found out, believers faced public stoning, imprisonment, or slavery. Despite all of this, their daily labor remained a spiritual exercise, reminding them that mercy was lived in action, not in hiding. Rome's answer was torture, such as being torn by dogs, whipped, crucified, or burned alive, always in public for the entertainment of the masses. The early Christians answered with prayer and reflection, anchoring their soul, reminding all believers of God's mercy and Jesus' example. Our culture expects bitterness in return for hurt, indifference to suffering, and revenge for wrong. The gospel calls for something else. Kindness where there should be cruelty, compassion where there should be coldness, forgiveness where there should be retaliation. This is the witness of the church. This is the way of Christ. This is the survival strategy of God's people. Because God forgave you, you can forgive others. That's the heartbeat of this message and the anchor for our lives. This week, choose one person who hurt you. Pray one blessing for them. That is your first step into forgiveness. This is the ethic that changed the world. And it begins with you. Ephesians 4:32 says it best. And be ye kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God for Christ's sake hath forgiven you. If you want to support our spreading of the good news and gospel, then subscribe to our channel and check back regularly for new biblical videos and insights. Leave your comments below. Your support means everything to us.